My name is Emily Seifert, and I'm an educator at the High School of Fashion Industries. And today we are here with industry leader Jason Rembert. So, just some questions before we get started. You're a well-accomplished stylist, right? But I want to know, where did you grow up? What influenced your love for fashion? Just a little bit of your background.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. My name is Jason Rembert, and I am a celebrity stylist. I've been styling probably for about the last 12 years. Um, and honestly got my first start by interning about 14 years ago. I seem so old right now, but about 14 years ago, I was in college. I was at Hofstra University, and my major was mathematics. But walking into Hofstra every day, that was like the era when everyone wore Juicy Couture sweatsuits and Ugg boots. And I'm walking into the cafe and I'm dressed up. And I go to class, I'm dressed up. No one else is dressed up. And you lose a sense of you when you around people who don't have the same interests as you do. And that's how I felt, like walking into Hofstra every day. Even though I got good grades, even though I had amazing friends, I just didn't feel like I 100% belonged. And so I applied for internships. And the first internship I applied for was Black Magazine. And growing up in Jamaica, Queens, and Far Rockaway, that was the only magazine I really knew about as far as to get fashion or fashion that I was attracted to was in the pages of Vibe. So I applied and I got declined. I applied the next semester. I was declined again. And then being discouraged, but at the same time being driven to find something else, I found this website called ed2010.com. And Ed 2010, they had a lot of internships, and they had this internship for a magazine called Elle, ELLE. And at that time, I didn't know what Elle was.
What year was that?
This was 05, 06, and I applied. I applied and I applied probably 3 o'clock in the morning. By 8 a.m. the next morning, I got a email from the fashion closet assistant, and he asked me, could I come in for an interview? And I went in for an interview, and man, I had the worst outfit on, like the worst possible outfit on.
What was it?
I had like a purple velvet or like velour type blazer,
Oh,
and,
wow.
and
You went
I
for it.
had a white and like really thin tan DKNY button up shirt. I had these gray and two different grays. It was like a heather gray and a dark gray pants, like really tailored trousers. And then I had a pair of brown Coach loafers. And I thought I was killing it. Like I was on the train. Like I couldn't even afford to get on the Long Island Railroad from my school in Long Island to go to the city to Elle magazine. So I had to take the bus to a train to another train. Like it was a long journey. It took me probably about like 2 or 3 hours to get there. And I had 5 interviews that day. I met with every single fashion assistant, and they taught me what they did and what my job, what exactly my job would be, working and interning for them. And then by the time I took that long journey home back to Hofstra, I got an email from the fashion closet assistant. And I got the internship, and I interned at Elle magazine for about 9 months. And by that time, I knew about creative directors. I knew about fashion brands. I knew what a fashion assistant did, what a market assistant did, what an editor does, um, the difference between fashion and beauty editors. And I really understood what I wanted my vision to be. And by that time I was like getting more acclimated and also like more just like fashion magazines and learning like why Elle is appealing to certain women, or why Vogue is appealing to certain women, or why Cosmo might be appealing to certain women, Lucky, and so on and so on. And by that time, I realized that W magazine was a magazine that I wanted to keep my journey, like to finish my journey with, like, and I applied for W magazine. Sorry guys. How do you mute this?
I know it's hard to mute that and also not mute your mic.
Yeah. Let me.
It happens all the time when I'm trying to watch a movie.
Preferences. All these sounds. Sorry guys.
That's okay.
Thank God this isn't live.
Yeah, right? Don't worry about it because they can edit it.
Okay. I think. Okay, cool. I think we should be cool. The ones the active combos, I was able to take the alerts off. So I knew W Magazine was the home for me. So I applied for W Magazine and I got declined. It seems like a pattern. Like you just keep getting declined and declined and declined, and you just got to keep going. And so I applied. W Magazine Accessories was hiring the accessories department, and so I applied just because I couldn't get into fashion. I was like, let me try to get in someplace. So I applied. I got the accessories, and at the same time, I applied for Harper's Bazaar for the fashion closet, and I got Harper's Bazaar. And so I had W accessories, and then I had Harper's Bazaar fashion. And so I went for Harper's Bazaar fashion, and like my first or second day, they were like, W fashion hit me and was like, we have an opportunity for you. And so I went for my dream. I went for W fashion closet, and I was there for probably about 9 months. And then it was I learned a lot being there. I learned a lot about hard work, and we were working probably about, it's probably not legal now, but we was probably working like 10 hours a day, and like none of these internships were paid, and I couldn't afford. My mom was a single mom. I couldn't afford to buy food every day. There was this place on 43rd Street, 43rd between 3rd and Lexington, I believe, 3rd and Lexington. And it was a Dollar Pizza spot before Dollar Pizza blew up. And I think I probably ate that pizza almost every day.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Because I.
Sorry, you cut out real quick.
No, I couldn't afford to eat, like to intern for free.
Yeah.
And then having my mom help me at school, and then going all the way to the internship, like, and affording that, it was so expensive.
Yeah.
And so,
go ahead. Years too, hopefully they've gotten better at making sure internships have to be paid, because coming up, the years you were coming up, like you're working 10 hours and you're not getting any money. And so it's
100%.
Dedication and passion for what you're doing is really the only way to make it through things like that.
It's 10 hours, 3 days a week. Like it's 3 days a week, 10 hours, and you still have to go to school the next day for like 10 hours for the 2 days. So you're probably putting in about 50 hours a week of work, probably even more, because when you have to do your homework on those other days, it's like that's also factored in there. Yeah. But I don't take nothing away from it. I feel like I learned so much.
And from that experience, how did you shift into celebrity styling from like your internship experience after you learned all of those things? Like, what was the first client you had? How did you kind of get into that aspect of fashion?
Definitely. while I was interning at W, either I believe during the summer break, when I wasn't in school, I received the opportunity to intern with celebrity stylist Worry Vice. And at that time, Worry was styling Alicia Keys.
Mm-hmm.
And Worry, I would go to W internship, and then the same look that was in the fashion closet to be shot as look 16 was on Worry's rack. And he was able to style it with like a pair of Timberlands and some door knocker earrings. Like, he didn't have to style it as look 16. And that is the reason why I fell in love with fashion, is because it's so easily connected with music, and how I'm inspired by musicians. I'm inspired on how they're able to create art that's unique to them, and create a look that is also as unique. And, you know, celebrity stylists like, you know, Misa Hilton with like Little Kim is probably like one of the reasons that I even wanted to be in fashion, because you hear the songs, like you see the look that Misa put on Little Kim. You don't know the brand, but you understand the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Then Lil Kim would go on a song or an interview, and she would talk about this brand, if it's, you know, Bulgari, or if it's Christian Lacroix, if it's Dior, Chanel. Like, you know, a lot of these brands, like, growing up in the hood, you don't know about. Like, you don't know, you didn't know these brands. These brands wasn't affordable or even obtainable to someone who family was living on government assistance.
Yeah.
So, you know, to hear these songs, and, you know, to be able to afford through Lil Kim's experience in her music, and just to afford a form of aspiration,
Mm-hmm.
was like something that inspired me as a little kid. Like, and I'm grateful for it. So when I worked with Warrior, I was like, man, like, this is the reason why I fell in love with fashion. Like through this, like, you know, the freedom, like, that a musician has to dictate their own art. Like, this is why I fell in love with fashion. Like, it doesn't have to be confined through advertising. And I feel like, you know, with a lot of editorial, you know, it's through advertising. Like, you'll see a magazine cover, you'll be like, oh, it's a full look. You know, that brand may have paid for it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, with a musician, you'll see a magazine cover, you'll see an album cover, and you know it's their art.
Yeah.
And so I think that was like the first time where I was like, man, like, I like this celebrity styling. Like, it's something that feels good. It's something that feels authentic. It's something that I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. And so probably about like 2 months after that, June Ambrose posted, probably like on Twitter, or like some form of social media, that she was looking for upcoming stylists who can join this competition she was having for BET Rip the Runway. She was looking for 3 up-and-coming stylists, and they were going to compete on BET Rip the Runway on a segment. They had to style probably about 4 to 5 looks, and that was going to be the opportunity. So I was interning at W that day, and again, to reiterate, I was broke, so I couldn't afford a taxi across town to go to see June Ambrose and go to this interview to possibly get picked, and I couldn't even afford a train across town, so I walked. At that time, W was on 44th and 3rd, and June Ambrose's interview was on 56 and 6. And it doesn't seem like a far walk, but when it's 90 degrees out and you're trying to look nice, and
it's a far walk.
It's a far walk, and it's a hot walk, and you're dressed up. Like, I probably had on a blazer, like, trying to look nice. You're dressed up. You have your big portfolio, during that time at W, I wasn't taking long lunch breaks. Like I probably had like 30 minutes, and I was supposed to come back in 30 minutes. That walk probably was about 20 minutes. So even if I got there and came back, I'm still late, 40, because that's like 40 minutes. But I got there and it was a long line. The line was probably about 45 minutes or an hour long.
Oh my God.
And I waited, and I knew I was going to get in trouble by the fashion assistant at W. I knew I was going to get in trouble. And I wanted it so bad that I stayed, and I did the interview. The interview went well. She really liked my stuff. Probably the end of that week, her team emailed me and said that I was picked. Like I was one of the finalists.
Wow.
So I was one of three.
So I have a question. I just want to ask before you keep going. What was in your portfolio at that time? Just kind of to like help our students understand what sort of work you would be presenting at an interview like that.
Of course. That's a great question. In my portfolio at the time, I was doing a lot of photo shoots with upcoming models.
Were you putting those photo shoots on yourself? Like, were they just passion projects that you?
Photo shoots on myself. I went on Model Mayhem, and I was working with a lot of up and coming photographers, and we were working with a lot of upcoming hairstylists and up and coming makeup artists. And so we would work with, like, everyone's up and coming. We would work with models. Like if we had clear vision, usually we didn't. Like hopefully it was based off of what clothing I brought to the shoot. We used to always shoot in like parks. If it was Central Park, or if it was the park in right by the museum, Brooklyn Museum, that park, whatever the name of the park is.
Yeah.
But we used to shoot in parks, and we had no permits. Like we just I would bring suitcases on the train and full of clothing, and I would just style it. The way I got clothing though was like really, really cool. At first it started off like I would borrow my friends, like close friends. Like I had a friend, her name was Aisha, and she was like really cool, like hipster, like Vashti type clothing. And so I used to go through her closet, and she was a size 9 and like a size 2. And I used to go through her closet and dress the models in her clothes. But then I wanted to do more fashion, like really, really high-end fashion. So I found this store called Savers, and I went with my grandmother, and every Monday we went to Savers. I picked my grandmother up at 7:30 a.m. We'll be at Savers by 8 a.m. and Savers open up at 9 a.m. The reason why I went on Mondays is because on Mondays, every Monday, it was 99 cents for a specific color. So if the color tag was blue, green, yellow, purple, like one Monday, everything purple is 99 cents. And so I came up, like, a lot of times I found pieces that would work well for my shoots. There was other times when I found pieces where I felt like I can take it to Beacon's Closet and resell it, and then make money to like afford to do photo shoots or afford to even get to and back for my internship. And so I had like a little hustle where I would go to Savers and then go to Beacon's Closet, or shoot it and then go to Beacon's Closet and sell it, because once I shot it, I don't need it anymore. And a lot of times with Beacon's Closet, I would get credit instead of getting money back, so I can buy things I really wanted for my kid. Like, and I would just always have it. Like, I remember the first time I bought like a pair of designer shoes from Beacon's Closet, it was like $74.
Yep.
And
I love Beacon's Closet.
Yeah, I was so excited because I was like, man, I got a pair of Balenciaga shoes in my kit. Like, because by that time I knew what Balenciaga shoes. A lot of times, grateful to my friend Aisha, but she was fly on a budget. So I was shooting Aldo and Steve Madden shoes. So when I was able to shoot a designer shoe, I was really, really excited.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that everything in your portfolio are projects that you accomplished because you were motivated and passionate about it, and you went out there and you hustled and got the clothes and resold the clothes and got your photographers and networked to get the models. It's like really important that you continue to work on your portfolio. It's not something that like you finished once and then it's the portfolio you use for the next 6 years. It's like you're constantly updating and adding things to it.
And you still do. You still do.
Yep.
Even at this point in my career, you know, you still add to your portfolio. I don't think that's something that's ever going to change, because a lot of times when you commission for specific projects, you don't always have the vision. Like it's always the client's vision and making them happy. And sometimes that feeds your pocket, but doesn't feed your soul. And so to feed your soul, and you have to make art that's yours. And so I'm at the point where if I want to create, I'm a pay out of my pocket to do it. And I'm gonna take the risk, and I'm gonna do a free photo shoot, and I'm gonna make it happen, because you have to be inspired.
Yeah. Do you think that your portfolio is really what got you that internship? It's like when she called back, how did that play out from there?
For sure. I think my portfolio got me that opportunity for sure. It was very, very unique because I'm a big fan of Alex White. She's now, ironically enough, the fashion director of Elle, but she was the fashion director of W at the time. And Alex White is so romantic. And that's what my portfolio really was based off. It was based off of romance, and being able to show romance through my art and through the way I styled. And so I think that kind of gave me a leverage of just being quite a bit more unique than probably my peers at the time. But that opportunity led me to actually celebrity styling. We went and we did the styling, and I ended up styling in my segment. Instead of models, they had a band, and they're like a girl group. Their name was Electric Red, and they were signing Def Jam. They were the Dreams and Tricky Stewart's new girl group. And I ended up styling 3 out of 4. And they really, really liked the way I styled them. They thought it was really cool and fresh and unique. And so after after Rip the Runway, they asked me to style them. And I ended up styling them for a few projects. And that's how I got my first opportunity for celebrity styling. Then I got an agent. And my agent at the time was Carlene Ballin. And Carlene, she opened up her own agency. And at the same time, she was the assistant for Jay-Z. And Carlene, yeah, she was able to get us like really, really great opportunities from her. I was able to work with probably a lot of talent: Wale, Nicki Minaj, Jeremiah, Lloyd. And then one day I was like, man, like I love all the projects I'm doing. I want to try pop. And so me being hungry, and I just started, I would Google and find like artists who were currently on the chart, and I thought didn't have a stylist, and I would just reach out. And I reached out to this artist named Jay Sean. And Jay Sean at the time had a really big song. It was called Down. And I just emailed, and within an hour, his team hit me and was like, hey, we don't have a stylist. We'd love to work with you.
Oh, wow.
And that was my first opportunity with styling someone who besides the one job with Nicki Minaj, was styling someone who was like had a #1 single on the chart.
Yeah.
And then from there, probably Jay Sean was a really great run. And then my agent called me and said, hey, I have an opportunity for you. There's a new artist who we would love for you to work with. And I was like, who? And it's like, he has a video. And I was like, okay, who? was like ASAP Rocky. And I was like, man, like that's dope. Like a young black kid, like you know who ASAP Rocky is. He's talking about all the stuff you into. Like he's talking about Raf Simmons, Rick Owens, Dior, all these brands. So I'm like, man, that would be a great opportunity. We ended up working together, and then on the video, my agent called me. I was like, hey, like I'm busy. I'm gonna fit in, and it was like, we have another opportunity for you to work with another up and coming artist. And I was like, who? And they said Rita Ora. And I was like, wow, man, like she's dope too. Like I like her a lot. And I ended up working with Rita probably the next week. We ended up being on the cover of WWD the day after. And after that, every single brand that said no double backed and said, if you ever need anything, please let us know. And we just kept working. She was really into fashion, and I was really into fashion, and I just wanted to push it. Probably by the end of that year, she became like a fashion darling, where every single brand was saying yes, from the Chanel's to the Valentino.
Yep.
To
she really was a fashion icon too. That's part of why her music, I think, did so well.
So that was it, and we were together for 8 years. And during that time, I worked with a lot of talent. Zayn ended up getting right after he left the boy band, and he went solo. And I remember my first job with him was taking him to Paris for Fashion Week, and we went to Valentino and went to Louis Vuitton. And they were both like so different at the time. Valentino, Pier Paolo was still the designer with Maria Grazia. And during that time, the men's designer of Louis Vuitton was Kim Jones. And Kim Jones was like really, really sporty, and Valentino was like really, really chic and minimal. And so we just wanted to have both the Valentino look and the Louis Vuitton look. And he became, he cut off all his hair, went blonde. He became a daring fashion guy, like in that moment, like in that one day of just going to 2 shows. Like everybody wanted to dress him after that.
Yep.
And we were very, very selective on the brands he was wearing. And then probably about 3 years later, he became the first male singer to be on the cover of Vogue. And like that was like a big moment, because he was on the cover of Vogue at the same time he got GQ's Best Dressed Man. Like, so like as a stylist, to have a client who is getting all these accolades for their fashion, to me was like probably one of the biggest moments of my career.
That was actually going to be my next question, is what do you think your biggest accomplishment has been? But
the biggest moment in my career was definitely designing it, like taking that leap.
Yes. Because I want to ask about that too. I want you to talk about when you started your brand, kind of like what led to that decision, because that's it's a difference from styling to now designing, and that's more of a recent thing. So kind of give us an entry into that.
For me, I started off as a designer when I was in college. When I was at Hofstra, I would design collections for all of the fashion shows, and then I became friends. And one of us was a designer, one of us was a designer / stylist, and one was a photographer. And so the designer was just like super, super talented, and you just knew they were going to be amazing. And the styling for me just seemed a little bit more promising during the time. And I felt like, if we all grew together, like the photographer could help the designer could help the stylist could help, and vice versa. Like, we can help each other. And that's exactly what happened. So I put all my attention into making styling work. And I'm happy I did, because when I launched the collection, I I launched it for one reason and one reason only. I didn't see anything missing in the industry. I didn't see like uh it wasn't it was I can't say I saw that m- my like yeah, sorry, I just didn't see anything like missing in the industry. Like it wasn't my focus. My focus for starting collection was based off of I made so much art in the last 12 years of my life, and I made a lot of times or sometimes some amazing art,
Mhm.
but that art is a compromised art, and it's an art that um, my clients may have had uh, a foot in, or their managers or their assistants or their partners. Um, it's just it wasn't art that was my own. That I can honestly say was always Jason's art.
Yep.
And so I wanted to make uncompromised art that was mine, and art that I wholeheartedly believed
Yeah.
in. And through that, through that process and finding me and finding what inspires me, and realizing that I'm still inspired by romanticism, and I'm still inspired by a strong woman and an unapologetic woman, and I wanted to be able to showcase that to the world, that
Mhm.
like this is uh, uh, a woman, and this is my woman, but my woman exists in many different women and wears many different hats, and
Mhm.
um, that was my goal. My goal was just to be
Yeah.
able to show women in different uh I don't know, different show women however women want it to be perceived, and
Yeah.
not just limiting them to um being sexy or being conservative or being happy, like letting them to have that freedom. And like that's the art I want to create. I want to create the art of freedom.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting the way you started saying that you didn't really see anything missing in the industry, because I think that's really what's happening now. We're almost so oversaturated, but it's like when you have worked so hard and kind of pioneered your way, and you have a platform now that you can then create your own art. It's like a really beautiful thing to see how you've come from not from designing, but not designing as a career, and then styling, and now that you've become successful in your career, you're able to like pursue your passion of making art and creating this brand. And I think that is important for our students to hear too, because I think a lot of times you expect to graduate from college and then you started a brand, right? And there's a million brands these days, but it's like when you find what works best for you and the thing that you're passionate about, and if you work hard, you end up being in a position like you are now. So what would you say, what advice would you give to students that are interested in fashion, not necessarily just designing, but they know they want to work in this field, and how can they get there? What's your advice to them?
Um, my advice to students would probably be the advice that I took to myself, to just keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know exactly what you want to do, um, intern, intern for different opportunities. Um, that was my biggest things. I wanted to learn all different parts of the industry, and even though I started off as a designer, I ended up becoming an assistant or an intern. I became a market editor. I acted as my own agent. I became a producer for shoots. I acted as agents for friends, and I just learned so many different parts of the industry where I'm able to have understanding of who I am and what I like and what I don't like. And I think that's the most important. You have to intern, if you want to be a stylist, you have to intern for more than one stylist. Like, you have to understand like that stylists all are different. They all work different. They all have different way of working. They all have different ideas, and you have to find what is fit for you. Like, and the same thing for designers. If you want to work for designer, you know, even though they're women, the women who purchase this brand may be similar, but Oscar de la Renta and Dior are two entirely different brands, and their aesthetic may be similar, but the way they work is completely different. And you have to figure out for you what is your aesthetic. If a person, the person you work for, is it aligned with not only your creative vision, but is it aligned with how you want to run your business? Because someone who may be aligned with your creative vision may not have the same morals as you, or may not have may not stand with the same integrity that you have. And you have to figure out what for you is best fit. And just like, you're gonna be told no so many times. I'm still told no.
Yeah, I appreciate you telling us that part of getting denied from the internships and not getting trying.
I'm denied still, and like even today, like I was denied for something, but I just keep going. And it's I think more than anything, what this time is showing us is that you have to be okay to pivot, because
you have to be able to adjust.
Yeah, if you don't, like, you're gonna be left behind.
Yeah, how has this changed the way you're working? Pandemic experience.
This has changed for me. I think for the first 7 weeks, I was confused.
Yeah.
And I was confused because I'm a workaholic, and like I tell everybody, like, there's stylists on earth who I think is way more talented, but I really don't know any stylists who can outwork me. Like, I'm a workaholic. I love working. I thrive off of the impossible and making the impossible happen. So 7 weeks of not working was definitely like confusing. It was definitely confusion in that, where I was like, man, what do I do? Like, I'm used to having probably about 300 emails a day, with like going down to 2 emails, and then going down to 0 emails, and you're like, what is going on? And I miss creating. And so now I'm in a place where I am creating again, and it's through different mediums. It's not just through styling. Creating through draping, interior decorating, through designing, through baking with my daughter. She loves it.
I've been baking a lot too.
And I'm really like enjoying it. I'm not putting pressure on myself. And I feel like a lot of times we as humans, we put pressure on ourselves to be doing more. And no, I'm not coming out of this pandemic with $1 billion idea or $1 million idea. I'm not coming out of it with probably any idea. But what I'm coming out of it with is my sanity, and knowing that I'm okay through all of this, and not okay because I have not okay because I'm economically okay, or not okay because I have my health, but okay just because I'm fine with not knowing, and I'm fine with understanding that however I choose to think and when I think, that my thoughts would be a perspective of the future and what's next rather than what already has been,
Yep.
if that makes any sense.
I know it makes sense. It's time for us to really take a step back and like decompress and enjoy like creating things in ways that we maybe never have, like baking, for example, or
100%.
interior decorating. I have redecorated my room too many times since we've started this.
And that's fine. Like I was jealous of my friend today. My friend Aisha, weirdly enough, like the one who let me borrow her clothes. I was on her Instagram today, and she went to Home Goods, and I was like, where's Home Goods open? Like, cause that's my favorite store. Like, I love Home Goods, and so I was like, where's Home
I
Goods
didn't think
open?
it was open though.
Yeah, she lives in Atlanta though, so she said she lives in the suburbs of Atlanta, and the Home Goods was open. They only let 5 people in the store at once, but she was able to go on Home Goods and like redecorate. So I'm on like Wayfair.
Me too, yeah.
On Etsy and
I like Cherish. You should look at Cherish. They have good, they curate their stuff.
Cherish? C-H-E-R-I-S?
Like like a chair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, please. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I bought a sample of wallpaper from there yesterday for like $10, and I like can't wait to get it in. But before, okay, we're gonna run out of time soon, so thank you for interviewing.
I mean, honestly, like if it's any other questions, like because I want to be helpful to these kids, because when I was their age, I didn't have anyone who can give me this advice.
Yes, they can look up to someone like you and relate to someone like you, especially since you're from Queens, and before you mentioned wanting to go to HSFI. So can you say that again so they can hear it, so they can appreciate how great their school is?
So when I was in 8th grade, I wanted to go to fashion industries, and it was something that at the time was a big interest of mine. Probably since I was probably 3rd grade, fashion has been something that was huge for me. And in my 8th grade year, I was applying for schools, and I saw fashion industries, but it was a bit of a fear because growing up in Queens, I didn't really get to go out of the borough as much as I probably would have liked. My mom was a single mom, and she was working 3 jobs, so I didn't have anyone to take me to the city, or so the fear of like applying and then getting accepted, but then going all the way to school in Manhattan and having to do that every day, which is like definitely a fear. And then also growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, there was no one who looked like anyone, like who not only didn't look like me, but like fashion wasn't a big thing. Like, you know, if you play basketball, or if you play football, or if you were just chilling, like that was more appealing than being in fashion. And so I think I definitely like let my fear get the best of me. But I ended up my girlfriend, she went to fashion industries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like my girlfriend right now, she went to fashion industries, and you know, a lot of my really close friends went to fashion industries, and they taught me a lot. They helped me a lot, and through them, I was able to to experience it. But I really honestly wish I went to school for fashion, because the opportunities are endless. You get to learn so much, and you get to learn it way before anyone else. Like, you know, that I wish I had those experiences. I wish I had known certain terminologies before, like especially like things I had to learn on my own. I wish I knew how to sew. I wish I knew what a stylist was in 8th grade. Like, I didn't know what any of those things were. And like from 9th to 12th, you know exactly what inspires you. And so you just have to keep going. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's my last question is going to be, hopefully we can have you come in and visit when
I would love to. I actually never been in the school.
Maybe you can come in and help out. We have the fashion show and I coordinate the show. So
oh, I would love to, man. These kids are so talented. Like, and you guys have like an amazing alum. Like, you know, these kids, they're so talented. And I see my girlfriend, she has a lot of like pictures from the school when she was in there, and like just like the projects that they were doing, like even when her and her best friends like get around each other and they start talking about the school, like, man, it's like jealous, because my school was about nothing. Like,
mine's the same. There's
like,
no
nothing. Who makes your top, by the way?
It's just thrifted. It's Goodwill.
Yeah.
That's why I was relating to your like tag story when you're talking about how each day is a different tag color. It's like that's how it is at the Goodwills, and like I'm on it. My entire closet is pretty much thrifted. People will later be like, "Oh, like who is that?" And I'm like, "This is Goodwill. This is no one." And like I'll look up the brands after, because it's like one of my favorite parts about thrifting is like finding out where it came from and where it was before. And it's like a fast fashion brand that like never really made it off the ground, but it's like I got this shirt and then people see it and they think it's a different, you know, it's like kind of blurs your vision between like designers and fast fashion and like what is considered, what deserves to be on magazine covers, right? Because it's like sometimes we think just because it's a name brand it deserves to be on the cover, but you can find so many things that no one knows who it is, and it can be, if you style it correctly and have your own taste and perspective, I don't know, maybe it could be on the magazine cover if you're styling it, you know.
Definitely. I mean, 100%. Like today I had a cover, not a cover, I had a campaign come out today with Lizzo, and
that's amazing, by the way.
Thank you. It's for Key, that Australian eyeglass line, and she's wearing all up and coming designers for the campaign. And I remember one of your alums, she's a really good friend. Her name is Chevelle Davis, and Chevelle was Chevelle was like one of like really early friends with designing. And so one day, probably about, I want to say like early December, I was walking on my block and I saw Chevelle, and I was speaking with Chevelle, and her mom was there. Her mom works on the same block as my office. And Chevelle was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going to my office." She was like, "Oh, I want to come." And then went to my office. My office was in disarray because we're always working on 30 projects at once. And she was like, "What are you working on?" I was like, "Oh, we're shooting a magazine cover tomorrow with Lizzo." She was like, "Could I make something?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And like, this was probably 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. And she was like, "What's your call time?" I said 8 a.m. And
oh my God.
Lizzo ended up getting there at 8 a.m. Chevelle pieces got there like 8:30 a.m. or 9 a.m. And Chevelle's clothing ended up being on the cover of Entertainment Weekly.
That's amazing. That's such a good story.
And it was just like to help someone who, like, she always knew what her dream was. She always knew what her purpose was. Like, and to help someone who had that much clarity in their vision since she was probably about 14. And I think that, you know, you guys had definitely a big impact on that, like her knowing her vision and her understanding who she was. Because like her going to that school, she learned so much. And just to see her now and to be able to help her, you know, be a vessel. And I think for me, that's the greatest part about styling for me, is helping young designers and seeing them become big designers, like helping them, like helping not only helping my clients and have their vision and seeing them become stars, but seeing designers become stars and being part of that.
And I don't think people always realize how much style or how much power stylists have, because it's like you're really the ones that are putting people's work on display. It's like you're
It's
the person
it's
that's
the most
really
power.
deciding what's cool and what's next.
It's the most power, unfortunately, now
Yep.
in fashion.
Yep.
And unfortunately,
Yeah.
because like there's some stylists who can have a huge ego, like,
Mm,
but it's a lot of power that stylists hold
yeah.
because editorial is not as uh impactful anymore. Like
Social media has changed all of that.
social media has changed everything, and
Mhm.
like a mention or a tag from a celebrity,
Yep.
or celebrity even wearing your clothing and get papped. Like
Mhm.
it's so impactful for sales, so impactful for press, and so stylists are really, really, really important.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why, like you have to understand your importance, and you have to understand that you also have an opportunity to help others, and not only help others where you benefit from, you have to help others who can benefit from you.
It's a collaborative process. I think it's important to know that.
100%. And being a designer, like, who needs the help? I need the press. Like, I'm grateful for every placement that I receive
Right.
from other stylists because every time they pull my clothing, I'm competing with every other brand. Like a
Yep.
stylist, if it's one look, a stylist is probably pulling about 20 to 30 looks. So that means out of 20, 30 looks, I was one of the ones chosen. Like I'm grateful, you know,
Yep.
you know, and that's how I feel. I try to help. There's times when I can help designers, and there's times when uh, I sometimes like where a big brand may win. If
Mhm.
it's just more for the vision. Like I try not to um, base my decisions and my styling off of my clients to big brands, and that's why I try to use like small brands a lot. I remember when Issa Rae went to CFDA Awards
Mhm.
and proposed the idea to her. I was like, hey, like I think we should wear all black designers,
Mhm.
and she was down for it. And none of the designers were big at the
Yeah.
moment, like not one. Like they were all like emerging, up and coming designers. Um, so just to give them that opportunity, and some now are huge designers, like huge designers, and just to see them grow and to see how much of an impact that had on people being accountable to have a diverse rack.
Yep.
Like, and I love when you see designers wear like more sustainable fashion
Mhm.
because
Where we gotta go.
it wasn't in the combo a
Yeah.
while ago, and so the combo of inclusion as a whole is amazing. And then I'm also happy I was a stylist first. Well, a successful stylist before becoming a designer, because designers sometimes think just art, 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 art,
Mhm.
and they don't want to not like sacrifice or do something in another color, or they don't want to um, let the talent tailor it for them to wear it. Because a lot of times you can make this amazing look, but if it doesn't work for the body of the talent, they have to tailor it to how they want. And I'm happy I have that perspective where I'm able to collaborate with stylists
Mhm.
and to understand what they need from me, and not to be uh, disrespected by it, or feel disrespected by honesty, or honestly just their taste,
Yeah.
because everybody's taste isn't the same.
Yep.
And I think a lot of designers, like a lot of artists, they're sensitive about their shit,
Mhm.
and I get it. Like,
Yeah. Personal.
yeah, it's personal, but and if you want things to be commercialized, if you want things to be big, if you want things to be for the masses, and everybody doesn't want it, but if you do, there has to be an objective that's also from the outside. So you're making art, but you're also making art that people want to buy.
Yep.